All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your patience. It's going to be weird speaking to just the right side of this room, but I can work with that. So thank you for being here today to be part of the 2026 Municipal Election Candidate Information Sessions. My name is Derek O'Shea. I'm the Deputy City Clerk and also the Assistant Returning Officer. We've got about, I'd say, an hour and 15 minutes of different speakers lined up today for the session. So thank you for being here, as well as those participating online. So I'll just let you know that because this is a hybrid session, the presentation portion is being recorded, and we do intend to share that on the city's Get Involved page. The Q&A session we will not be sharing. And for those participating on Zoom, your video, microphone, and the chat features are turned off for this time being. But should those participating on Zoom have any questions, we'll ask you, you can type those in the Q&A function that is in Zoom. You can enable that at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Also, at the end of all the presentations, we will have a question and answer period for those in the room and online. So if you wish to speak and you're online, raise your hand in Zoom and we will gladly give you the permission to unmute your microphone and ask your question. So here's the agenda for today's session. So first it'll be City of Kingston speaking. That's myself for about 30 minutes. We tested this out last week. We've got it down to a tight 30 minutes. Then we'll also have former City Councillor Robert Kiley speaking about his experience as a member of council. And we have representatives from the Limestone District School Board, the Algonquin Lakeshore Catholic District School Board, and the Conseil des Écoles Publiques de l'Est d'Ontario. Following those presentations, we'll go into the Q&A period. I've also asked that any of the speakers who are here in person, as well as the election staff, we're very noticeable by our fancy purple polo shirts. If you have any questions afterwards, you can come see one of us. We'll hang around in the room for a little bit as well. We have some guidelines for participation here today. I'm not going to go through all of them. I joked with my team earlier that it's basically like the poster you see in the doctor's office of everything I learned, everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. So that's basically the rules we're going to follow today. Treat everybody here with respect. If you have a question, we'll have lots of time for that at the end. And yeah, we'll just generally have a good time today getting informed about how to run for the 2026 municipal election. So we're going to kick that off, and we'll start off with who is eligible to run in the election. There's some fancy wording up here from the Municipal Act, as well as the Municipal Elections Act. But really what it is if you are eligible to vote in the City of Kingston, you are eligible to run for council. So how are you eligible to vote? Well, simply, you are a Canadian citizen, you're 18 years of age or older, and you live in Kingston, you are the owner or tenant of land in Kingston, or you are the spouse of a person who is an owner or tenant of land in Kingston. And there's one last part in there which states that you're not prohibited from voting under the Act. And there are some clauses in the Act basically called corrupt practices. So if you have been convicted of bribing somebody to vote some way, or you yourself have been, accepted a bribe or favor to vote a certain way and been convicted, you would not be able to run in the municipal election. And that's one thing that often catches people off guard, is that you don't actually have to live in Kingston in order to run in the municipal election or for school board trustee. So who is not eligible to run in a municipal election? So any person who's not eligible to vote, as we've kind of touched on. An employee of the municipality, unless they take a leave of absence during the campaign, and then if they're successful, they resign their position with the municipality. A judge of any court, a member of another House of Parliament, so whether that's the provincial or federal legislature. And one that people may not be aware of, and only applies if you've run previously in the 2022 election, if you ran in that election and did not file your financial statement paperwork before the deadline. So those are the requirements for not being eligible to run. So getting that out of the way, we've now determined you're eligible to run for council. If you're not, feel free to leave. You can stick around though if you want to learn a little more too. What's the role of a council member? I'm going to really cover the legislative aspect, and I think this is where Robert Kiley is going to be able to give you the truth about what being a councillor is really like. So the Municipal Act states you're here to represent the well-being and interests of the entire municipality. You also help to develop and evaluate the policies and programs of the municipality and determine the services that the municipality provides. I think the best way to describe this is it's an oversight position. You are there to make sure that the necessary frameworks and policies are in place to do the work that you as a member of council believe city staff should be doing. You might be, approving a policy about the filling of potholes, but you're not going to be the one out there filling the potholes yourself or directing exactly which potholes get filled. Another big aspect of the role of a city council member is ensuring the accountability and transparency of operations, as well as the activity of senior management. So similar to a board of directors role, again, it's an oversight for the staff that are actually doing out the work, in particular, the senior management of the city. It's also very important that you pay a keen eye to the financial integrity of the city. We are using taxpayer dollars here, and the proper spending of that is of utmost importance. And a nice catch-all like a job description that says other duties as assigned, you're also to carry out the duties under this or any other act that are assigned to council. So outside of those legislated roles, there's some other aspects of a municipal councillor that are important to consider. One of them is engaging with residents to address concerns, gather feedback, and communicate on city initiatives. This is a big aspect of the job, is responding to your constituents. Another aspect is you will be asked to serve on committees and working groups of the city. I'll touch on that a little bit more. There's also several external boards and agencies that you would play a similar role and be sort of the council liaison on those groups, as council may provide funding or be in partnership with those organizations. We'll cover some of those in a little bit. And then the general, I'll call political aspect, attending community events and having a visibility within your own district, but you're also considering the broader needs of the city. So if you run for council, you will have sort of a geographic region of voters, but it's also part of a bigger city. There are 12 members around the horseshoe plus the mayor, and the consideration is for the entire city as well, not just one single geographic region. Now we're getting into some of the interesting stuff. If anybody here in the room is considering running for mayor, there's some different aspects to the role than a city councillor. As the act states, the mayor is basically the CEO of the municipality. And one of the big aspects is they preside over council meetings as the chair and make sure that meetings run smoothly, effectively, and efficiently. It's also a role that provides leadership to council, as well as I'll say a figurehead role in representing the city at official events and functions. And again, that classic other duties as assigned under this act or any other act. When talking about the CAO role, there's again more specificity within the legislation, but it's almost acting a bit as a cheerleader for the city, promoting the purposes of the municipality, promoting public involvement in the municipality, doing that role of sort of being a booster for Kingston as a city. And also representing Kingston not only locally, but on a provincial and even perhaps an international scale as well. And then making sure that you're participating in activities that foster the well-being of the city from an economic, social, and environmental aspect. So as I was reading through this and trying to think of a best way to describe it, I feel like cheerleader came in their #1 promoter as well as an important aspect. So outside of that fun analogy, there's the new topic of strong mayor powers, which have been in the news a lot in Ontario municipalities for the last 2 years, and Kingston is a municipality with those powers. So what does this mean exactly in practice? So under strong mayor powers, the mayor of Kingston has the ability to provide direction directly to municipal employees. Ordinarily, that's not the case. Council typically makes its decisions by vote and debate in public, which then provides direction to staff. However, the mayor in a couple of cases can supersede that process. So they can provide direction in writing to undertake research and provide advice about policies and programs with the municipality, as well as providing instructions in writing how to carry out those duties related to any of the decisions that are made by the mayor under strong mayor powers. So those are kind of, I'd say almost a bit vague, but there are some strong mayor powers that are a bit more direct. So this includes determining the organizational structure of the municipality, and this can include the power to hire, dismiss, or exercise other employment powers for the head of any division or head of any part of the organizational structure. It's basically the power to hire and fire senior management within the city. Strong mayor powers also give the ability to appoint chairs and vice chairs of local boards, as well as establish or dissolve committees, appoint the chairs and vice chairs of those committees, and assign functions to those committees as well. Again, these are the powers that have been used in many municipalities around Kingston to a certain degree of strife within their local electorate. And there's one last aspect of strong mayor powers before we move on regarding bylaws and budget. So under strong mayor powers, the mayor has the ability to veto bylaws passed under the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, or other acts that are described by the legislation that are fitting within a provincial priority, and I'll touch on that in a moment. The mayor can also introduce bylaws that advance those provincial priorities, and those bylaws only require a 1/3 vote of council for approval. Pretty much everything else requires 50% plus one approval. And lastly, it's the mayor's responsibility to propose an annual budget on or before February 1st of each year. So what used to be a staff responsibility, the mayor has that responsibility. Now, I won't go into too much more detail, but the mayor does have the ability to delegate certain of these duties back to staff, but certain things like that budget preparation, they cannot delegate. So the last notice on this, what are those provincial priorities that tie into the mayor's strong power? So they're defined in a regulation. It's anything that would help Ontario build 1.5 million new residential units by 2031, and then constructing and maintaining infrastructure to support housing, listing those things there like transit, roads, utilities, and servicing. All right, so we're through all that. I want to talk a little bit about the role that the City Clerk's Department plays in the election, and then we'll get into sort of the nuts and bolts of, okay, I haven't scared you off yet. You're still interested in running for election. What do you need to do that? So the city clerk, who is Janet Janes, she's sitting to my left, your right there. Yes, waving nicely. Thank you, Janet, is the returning officer. And there are sort of, I think, 6 bullet points here that describe the principles of how the election is to be run. I won't go through them all, but understand that it's all about making sure the election is conducted in a fair and non-biased way, and that is fair to the voters, candidates, and all who participate. Making sure that the results of the election reflect what voters' intentions were, and that the confidentiality of vote is maintained. That is sort of a paramount aspect. So these are the guiding principles that Janet, myself, and our staff use when we're making any decisions with respect to the election. Now, the role of staff within both an election and when you would be working with them as a potential member of council is they provide impartial, balanced, and consistent advice to council, but they also implement the decisions that council makes in a timely, professional, and impartial manner. I think I'll go back to some of my learning about 20 years ago in university about public administration. It's rowing versus steering. So city staff members are the ones who do the rowing. They move and get the boat to where it needs to be, but council does the steering and sets the direction and where staff are to go. So staff's job is to implement the decisions of council to the best of their ability. But it still is a partnership working together with openness and honesty on both sides. And that goes to that last point there about staff is important to be open to discussion with council members and seek clarification when necessary. All right, so how does city council work? What are you in for in terms of a day-to-day aspect? So council meets twice monthly on the first and third Tuesday at 7 p.m. Meetings vary quite a bit, 2 to 5 hours. If any of you have had the pleasure of being through a long council meeting, they can go quite a lengthy amount of time. Meetings do typically start earlier than 7 p.m. for closed session. So by legislation, all the business a municipal council does is supposed to be open to the public, held in a room like this where the public can see the proceedings. There are several exceptions, though, where council can meet in closed or in camera, where it's just council members and senior staff. Those are listed in the Municipal Act, but they primarily have to do with labor relations, litigation, or legal matters, or purchase of property. And council can also have special meetings related to specific topics outside of that regular twice monthly schedule. So within council, there are several different layers of committees. First is standing committees. You can see them listed on the screen there. These are made up of 6 council members, and they look specifically at policies, programs, and issues related to their particular area. They basically examine things more in depth than council does and makes recommendations up to council. They meet typically every 2 months, meetings about an hour to 2 hours. Planning committee, however, meets twice monthly, and those meetings are anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. All meetings happen in the evening, and much like council, special meetings can be scheduled when required. So if you're not yet got your fill of committees, there's advisory committees as well. There's 5 of them, again, listed on the screen here. These are made up of council members, members of the public, and technical experts who provide advice to staff and council on these specific areas of expertise. The schedules can vary. They can meet monthly, every 2 months, or quarterly. Meetings are usually between an hour to 2 hours, and these meetings are typically held during the day. And I will note that all committee meetings, there is the potential for council members or any member to participate virtually via Zoom. And lastly, we have a group of committees and working groups listed on the screen there. They all vary in their sort of roles, but some of them are more quasi-judicial, whereas others are more, I'd say, relaxed and meant to be a more collegial atmosphere as opposed to a formal parliamentary body. Meeting times really vary depending on the group, and they're usually about an hour to 2 hours, can be during the day and in the evening. So now we've covered everything you would do inside the city. As a council member too, you would also be expected to serve on external agency and boards as well. So there's several listed up here. Some of the more popular ones include Kingston Police Service Board, the Library Board, Cataraqui Region Conservation Area, etc. So not only would you have a lot of duties related to council meetings themselves, but also committees and boards. Okay, we're almost through this part here. Now we're getting to the really important part, the money. Remuneration. So what are you going to make as a council member? For mayor, beginning the 2026 term, it will be $153,510 per year. For a council member, it is $53,550. And beginning January 1, 2028, there will be a cost of living increase applied each year. So councillors also do have the option to voluntarily serve as deputy mayor. So you would basically take the role of mayor when the mayor is unable to do so. Those are done in, I believe it will be now in 4-month increments starting in the new term. And there is a compensation of $2,500 per month additional for anybody who serves as deputy mayor. And as a council member, you also receive a car allowance. You will receive a parking pass that you can use when you are on city business to park for free, as well as a laptop and a cell phone. So outside of sort of the money and sort of physical tools that you receive as a council member, there are also a form of staff support in the Council and Community Relations office. So there is one full-time coordinator right now. And starting in the next term of council, there will be an additional part-time role as well as a summer intern that will be there to assist councillors. And this role does a number of things, including policy research, assisting with communications, administrative and logistical support. They help advise councillors and coordinate town hall meetings and other meetings with constituents, as well as coordinating travel and conference expenses. You may choose to attend things like the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference. Many councillors do that. They will also help draft speakers' remarks you may have for any events you attend to as well. So the support was started with the last term of council and I believe has been very well utilized by this current term. So that's another resource you would have as a potential council member. I think I only have 1 or 2 slides left here. Just want to talk briefly about the importance of openness and transparency, because that may be something, if you haven't served as a councillor elsewhere or worked in municipal government, you might not be aware of, but they're very critical to local government. Pretty much everything we do is based on how open and transparent we can be. So council meetings are live streamed on the city's website and also aired on your TV. The same thing for standing committees and select advisory committees. Again, they are live streamed on the website and then recordings are uploaded to the city website for future use. And members of the public can attend all of those meetings and there's ways for them to participate as well. Formal delegations, but also generally there's portions where members of the public can choose to ask questions or make comments. So if you are assigned to one of these committees, expect to see members of the public there as well, and they will be interested in sharing their opinions. And lastly, all council and committee meeting dates, agendas, and minutes are posted on the city website as well for public viewing. All right, I think I've got 2 more slides left. Now, this is what the process is if you do want to become a member of City Council. So nominations open for mayor, district councillor, and school board trustee this Friday, May the 1st. You do have a long nomination period. It does not close until Friday, August the 21st at 2 p.m. So by my count, you have almost 3 months and a little bit. So your nominations, we do ask you submit them in person, and there is specific paperwork you need to provide. A Form 1, which is the nomination paper, that is from the province, as well as a consent to release personal information. This is because we will ask if you are okay with us sharing your name and contact information on the city website as a candidate. There's also a filing fee as well. This is provincially required. So anyone running for mayor needs to pay a $200 fee. For a district councillor or school board trustee, it is a $100 fee. And I will note that if you do file your campaign financial paperwork at the end of the campaign, you will receive this money back. And also I'll note too that you are not required to live in a district that you run. So you can run in any district you like in the City of Kingston. If you are running for mayor or district councillor, there's one more additional requirement. It's called the endorsement of nomination. This is called the Form 2 from the province. You basically need to have 25 people sign saying that they endorse your nomination. It doesn't mean they're going to vote for you. It doesn't mean that they think you're the best candidate. It's just that they are putting their name down saying they're willing to support you as a candidate running in the election. All they need to be eligible to sign the endorsement is they have to be eligible to vote in Kingston, basically on the day they are signing it. So if you have somebody sign your endorsement and nomination and they move away 6 months from now, that's not a problem. They just have to be eligible the day they sign it. People can sign as many endorsement papers as they like. They're not limited to just one candidate. And just make sure when you're having that filled out, they fill it out in its entirety. When you come to file your nomination paperwork, we'll double check, but we want to make sure all our candidates are clear and there's not a small technical requirement that would hold up a candidacy. So we've reached the end of August 21st. So the clerk will certify all candidates by 4 p.m. on August 24th. And if the clerk is not satisfied that a person meets the requirements, that application will be rejected, and that rejection is final. I will note, though, that clerk's office staff, we do work with candidates to make sure all your paperwork is correct and that you meet the criteria. This isn't an attempt at a gotcha, so we will not be surprising you on August 24th saying you are not eligible. All right, I think this is my last slide before we move on to our next speaker. So some important dates. I've covered a few of these. Another important one is election signs. You are limited to the dates you can place those. That starts Saturday, September 26th, and they must all be down by Friday, October 30th, which is 96 hours after voting day. As a candidate, you will receive information about this when you come file your paperwork. So internet voting will be open October 14th to 26th. And in-person advanced voting days will take place on October 16th and 17th, with the big day voting day being Monday, October 26th. So after you get through all that, the last day for the current council is Sunday, November 15th is the last day of their term. So if you are successful in running and you are a member of the 2026-2030 term, your orientation will take place in mid-November, and the inaugural meeting is scheduled for November 24th. So that kind of sets out the roadmap for the next 6 to 8 months. All right, so I am now done my portion of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over and invite former City Councillor Robert Kiley to come to the podium and share his experiences as a former member of council. Robert, thank you for joining us.
All right, Derek, thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone who's out this morning or afternoon at this point and showing your interest in municipal politics. I thought the analogy of the mayor as a cheerleader was a great place to pick up on, not only because it's a funny image thinking of Mayor Patterson with pom-poms, but because flexibility is really key in the role of councillor. And that's what I thought I could maybe underscore, because the presentation put together by staff was great in terms of outlining some of the technical details and the timelines and what you can expect in terms of the formality of the role. But the flexibility side is both, I think, the most important part, and to be honest, which I thought I should do with you here today, probably the part that I struggled with most as a councillor, finding the flexibility to balance personal life and the demands of the position. So when it comes to flexibility with the council role, I'd suggest a few things. One, you need to be flexible with your ability to move around the city, like literally getting to many different venues, sometimes even in a day. It's nice that there's a hybrid option for council meetings, so you don't always need to come to City Hall anymore. But the ability to move about, to be in different places, flexibility when it also comes to working with a variety of people. So fellow council members who might come from different ideological or kind of political persuasions, working with them, flexibility around the issues that come before you on your desk. And there are a number of those that you might not expect. For example, perhaps you'll be on a council that deals with the global pandemic. That was my experience. And you're entering into this really not knowing what happens tomorrow, let alone what will happen in 3 years in the middle of your term. So flexibility in mindset is incredibly important. And then just flexibility balancing the type of schedule that we've heard. So a 5-hour meeting might sound fine on paper, but that means a few hours beforehand, meeting with your colleagues, going through the details of who might say what you're thinking. Maybe that is flexibility of meeting them afterwards. Flexibility, of course, meeting with constituents to hear what they think on the issues, replying to their emails. So a 5-hour meeting, in my experience, becomes about 10 hours of prep work. That's about a 2-to-1 ratio. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I'm going to try to keep it short. That's what I committed to, and hopefully be a part of the Q&A, because perhaps you have something that you're thinking of specifically that I could answer from a lived experience perspective. We have a tradition in Kingston where we acknowledge current councillors. So we have Councillor Sinani and Ridge who are here as well. And maybe if they're sticking around, they could answer how they're doing in this term. I first was elected 8 years ago, so some of my knowledge is dated. Like, I can't believe a deputy mayor makes $2,500. That's about 10 times more than when I was here. So if you can stay open, if you can stay flexible, willing to work with other people, I think you're in the right spot. If that's a challenge, perhaps reconsider. And that's perhaps a blunt thing to say to you. But municipal politics, in my view at least, is the best type of politics because you're directly contributing to your community. You're not tied to a political party. You, in my opinion, especially going through it, shouldn't even be tied to a particular agenda. Maybe you really do care about climate change or social justice or what the issue of the day may be. But again, pandemic being the operative example from my time, things will emerge that you need to have an open mind about, and you need to have that kind of open spirit to work with a wide variety of people. So I'll leave it at that, recognizing that there are other presentations after me, but I do very much invite you to ask me afterwards or in the Q&A anything that you might have on your mind. Thanks for the time.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Robert. I'm sure we'll take advantage of the Q&A. Next, I'd like to invite Maddie Crothers, who is representing the Limestone District School Board, and share a bit about becoming a school board trustee. Maddie, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Derek. So again, my name is Maddie. I work in communications at the Limestone District School Board. We have a very short video to share with you today that provides an overview of the role of a trustee within Limestone. And if anyone has any questions after the video, you're more than welcome to reach out by email at communications@limestone.on.ca, or you can visit our website. There's information there as well about becoming a trustee or contacting us to discuss any questions that you may have.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Maddie. So we'll share the video now, and just if there's anybody online, it does have captioning. If there's any issues with the audio, we will just proceed, but thank you very much.
District School Board Trustee gives you the opportunity to make a positive difference in the lives of every student, in every classroom, in every school. Trustees help shape the direction of public education in our community through governance, policy, and advocacy. We want people to see themselves in this role. Trustees come from many different backgrounds and life experiences. This role is about one shared intention: supporting student success and well-being across our entire district. Before we talk about the role of a trustee, it is helpful to understand the scope of Limestone District School Board. Limestone serves more than 20,500 students across the large and diverse geographic area that includes the City of Kingston, the townships of Central Frontenac, North Frontenac, South Frontenac, Addington Highlands, Loyalist, Stone Mills, the Frontenac Islands and the town of Greater Napanee. We operate 55 schools and 5 alternative education centers, supporting students in urban, rural and island communities. Altogether, the district spans more than 7,700 square kilometers, which really highlights the diversity of communities and the needs trustees represent. Despite the size and variety of our region, what connects all our schools is a shared commitment to strong inclusive public education. Decisions made at the board table have an impact across this entire region on students, families, and communities. In Ontario, publicly funded school boards are provincially legislated from the Education Act. That legislation sets out the roles, responsibilities, and authority of school boards trustees. School boards operate under the oversight of the Ontario Ministry of Education, which establishes provincial priorities, curriculum requirements, and funding frameworks. While the province sets the framework, boards are governed locally by municipally elected trustees. Across Ontario, there are 4 types of publicly funded school boards. These include English Public, English Catholic, French Public, and French Catholic school boards, each serving different communities and linguistic or faith-based mandates within the public system. School board trustees are locally elected members of the district school board and serve as community advocates for public education. They are elected through the Municipal Elections Act but are operated and governed under the Ontario Education Act. Trustees work as a team. Individual trustees don't have authority on their own. Decisions are made collectively. Their role is focused on policy and governance, not day-to-day school operations, which are managed by the Director of Education and staff. Trustees are responsible for accountability to the public and to the Ministry of Education while always putting students first. Trustees attend monthly board meetings along with additional committee or special meetings as needed. Each trustee typically serves on one or more of the board's statutory and standing committees. Trustees may also represent Limestone at provincial organizations and meetings. Trustees advocate for publicly funded education, both to the Ministry of Education and through provincial associations. They act as a key connection between the community and the board, bringing questions, concerns, and ideas from families and the public forward to trustees, the Director of Education, and senior staff. Trustees also represent Limestone at school events, community meetings, school council forums, and other public gatherings. This visibility and accessibility are an important part of the role, helping communities feel heard and connected to public education. Trustees are elected every 4 years. The upcoming term runs from November 2026 to November 2030. The Limestone District School Board is made up of 9 elected trustees, representing communities across our district. In addition, the board includes an Indigenous trustee, who is appointed by the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte and serves alongside elected trustees for the same term. To be eligible to serve as a trustee, an individual must be 18 years of age or older and a Canadian citizen. They must also live within the Limestone District School Board area. Trustees must be registered as supporters of the public school system and must be eligible to vote in a school board election. Trustee compensation is set by the Education Act and is consistent across Ontario. There is a base annual amount of $5,900, plus $50 per eligible meeting, capped at $1,200 per year. The chair and vice chair receive additional amounts to reflect their leadership responsibilities. Trustees also receive an enrollment-based amount which is set provincially each year and is divided among trustees based on student enrollment. Overall, this role is not a salaried position. Trustees receive an honorarium that recognizes the time and responsibility involved in public service. If you are interested in learning more about the role of a trustee or the work of the board, please visit our website. You will find information about the Board of Trustees meeting schedules, policies, and how trustees support public education across our communities. The website is also the best place to find up-to-date information about trustee elections and how to get involved. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about serving your community through public education.
All right, so thank you very much to the Limestone team for sharing that video and being here with us today. I'll now invite Terry Shea from the Algonquin Lakeshore Catholic District School Board to speak. Terry, just give me one moment and I'll get your presentation ready. There you go.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank the city for the opportunity to be involved in this orientation. It's I think, very important for candidates to understand the length and breadth of the role. I've been a trustee not concurrently for over 2 decades, and I say not concurrently. I opted out of municipal election terms on 2 occasions. Part of the reason is that the challenge of time is something that anybody that serves publicly has to grapple with and address and be willing to put in the time. I'm going to cover a couple of general questions that come up very often. One of them is, why is there 2 systems? Why is there a Catholic system in Ontario when other provinces don't have it? The Catholic boards in our province are ingrained in the provincial charter. And so for us to not have Catholic boards in Ontario, someone would have to challenge the charter, and that would, of course, be a much bigger job than just dealing with the one question, because there will be a number of other challenges within the charter, and it seems that it's something that people are not willing to undertake. And so our board and Catholic boards is what I'm going to refer to in my slide deck here. First of all, I just want to give you a little bit of background on how we view the education role, and our vision, mission, and values are stated here. Our Catholic faith, and I'll just read the values, our Catholic faith and joy that comes from living Christ-centered lives, responsibility and stewardship, equity and well-being, individual success and accomplishments are, of course, always the priority, but with a certainly with a view on our faith, and see our faith as a beacon for all our children and our students, and all our students in our schools. We are a different representation than Limestone Board. Our board geography includes 3 counties, and it stretches all the way from Algonquin Park in the north, Whitney, to the lakeshore of Lake Ontario, hence the name Algonquin and Lakeshore Catholic District School Board, 16,000 square kilometers. Our school, we have 33 elementary schools, 5 secondary schools. One of those is in Trenton, 2 of them are in Belleville, and 2 in Kingston. We have continuing education with 5 sites for adult learning. As you can see, 8,500 students in the elementary panel, 3,957 in the secondary panel. 7 French immersion sites, 2 international baccalaureate world schools, 1 in Belleville and 1 in Kingston. I've referred to, of course, the faith being the beacon in our system. It is intended more to act as a companion for our students. A lot of times there's concern about there being too much religion in our schools. It's important to note that in our high schools, for instance, Holy Cross would be an example with over 1,300 students. Over 20% of those students are non-Catholic. They're in our school because of the way we manage our schools, and because our openness to accept and receive people who have a spiritual center and wish to practice their faith. We make room for those other religions in our schools. We always have a pastoral theme year after year. This happens to be our pastoral theme this year. Our board is made up of 10 trustees and 3 student trustees. Our Kingston board elects 4 trustees in the Kingston area. They are elected at large. So it is not tied to a specific district like councillors. If we want to be aggressive campaigners, we must campaign like the mayor. We have to get out and do the whole community within the city of Kingston if we wanted to be an aggressive campaigner. So it's a real challenge for Catholic school trustees at election time, because you have to be pretty strategic in how you conduct a campaign to get elected. A typical month on our board, regular committee meetings happen on the 2nd Tuesday of the month. We have 2 standing committees, finance and issues and directions. Our board meeting is every 4th Tuesday. School events and special meetings are a big part of what we do, but we are not in any way engaged in schools on a day-to-day basis. As you saw very appropriately in the Limestone presentation, the operational side of school boards and schools is not the authority of school board trustees. We deal in policy and capital expenditures and in general engaging and acting as conduit for our community and for our parents. We have a group of standing committees other than just the committees on the second Tuesday of each month and the board meeting on the fourth Tuesday. 10 trustees are distributed across all of these standing committees, and they meet at various ways. Now, this is an example. Special Education Advisory Committee meets 10 times a year. So when you think about that, that's basically all but the 2 summer months. The Algonquin and Lakeshore Catholic Education Foundation Committee meets 3 times a year. Our board has a foundation, as most school boards do, where there is money raised and used to support families who in order to make sure that all families are treated equitably in all activities within our schools. For instance, if you've got a trip that requires a certain amount of support from the parents to underwrite some of the cost, then if a family does not have the resources, we make sure through the foundation that the child is able to participate. Another one is facilities enhancement review. This is about as close to really kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of operating the school board. And the Facility Enhancement Review Committee is one where board trustees sit with the engineers, with the finance department, with the planners, and talk about what schools need attention, where we're going to build new schools, and all of those things that relate to the actual physical plant. I can tell you, having sat on that committee a number of times, it is probably the most eye-opening and at the same time satisfying committee to sit on. You have that opportunity. There was some talk about engagement beyond just going to meetings. This is just 4 pictures and it doesn't really mean anything except to give you an idea of the kinds of things that being a trustee exposes you to. Lower left, you see those ugly yellow vests. That is at a Belleville Senators AHL hockey game. Because we are a foundation and we've applied for ways to raise money, just as an example, trustees go to 9 hockey games over the course of their season and sell 50-50 tickets. And it's a fun night, but it's not for everybody. You'll notice in the lower right, quite a group of people. That's celebrating the dual credit, dual stream courses where we partner with St. Lawrence College, and people in specific programs are able to not only gain a high school credit, but at the same time gain a college credit, and they're exposed to the college life in that very key program, so that they kind of have an idea of what it's like when they go past grade 12. We participate in that as a celebration. There's a pancake breakfast. You'll see a trustee flipping pancakes. It's the kind of thing that they need manpower. As trustees, we're expected to network. We're expected to be available to the public. We're expected to be, as I mentioned, conduit for parents. And so if you're considering being a school board trustee, expect that you will be involved in more things and more diverse things than you probably can imagine. But it's all very rewarding and all very satisfying. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Terry. So we'll be prepared now for our last speaker, which is Tara Gray from the Conseil d'école publique de l'Est de l'Ontario. Apologies for any poor pronunciations there. This is the French Public School Board. So Tara, I'm just going to get your presentation ready, and then when you want me to move slides, just tell me next slide and you can take it away.
Thank you very much. So while we're getting that up, I just want to thank the City of Kingston for the opportunity to come speak to everyone. I will be doing this presentation in French, but as you can see, I'm well equipped to answer questions in both French and English. Donc, merci à tout le monde d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je m'appelle Tara Gray, je suis conseillère principale en gouvernance et affaires du conseil au Conseil des écoles publiques de l'Est de l'Ontario, qu'on appelle le CPO. Next, please. Donc, un petit peu au sujet du CPO, notre plan stratégique est axé sur nos valeurs de bienveillance, d'excellence, d'innovation et de pluralisme. Nous sommes vraiment le conseil scolaire de langue française pour tous. Et puis, notre mission est vraiment de créer des opportunités accessibles et équitables pour tous les membres de nos communautés scolaires. Next, please. Donc, au CPO, on a un énorme territoire. Je veux pas que vous vous inquiétiez, malgré que le Conseil des écoles publiques de l'Est de l'Ontario s'étale sur un territoire de plus de 40 000 km². Le secteur qui serait représenté par un membre de la région de Kingston est beaucoup plus petit que celui-là. Puis, on va en parler sous peu. On a 45 écoles, 29 centres de la petite enfance. On a plus de 19 000 élèves cette année. On a franchi le seuil des 19 000 élèves et plus de 5 000 membres du personnel. Et puis, notre siège social se situe à Ottawa. Next, please. Donc, vous allez voir que le secteur qui serait représenté par un membre provenant, par exemple, de Kingston est le secteur 2. Ça peut paraître énorme et intimidant, mais ne craignez pas, parce que les écoles dans le secteur 2 sont surtout concentrées sur le long de la 401. Donc, on a des écoles à Trenton et Kingston, puis on n'a pas vraiment de projet immédiat pour l'ouverture d'écoles plus au nord, comme à Bancroft. Donc, c'est quand même un secteur qui est très bien représenté par un membre du conseil. Next, please. Donc, dans le secteur de Kingston, nous avons deux belles écoles. Nous avons notre école élémentaire publique Madeleine de Roibon, qui est une belle petite école qui est très impliquée dans sa communauté, avec plein de projets au bénéfice de la communauté de Kingston. Et nous avons notre école secondaire publique Mille-Îles, qui est un projet d'école conjoint avec le Conseil des écoles catholiques du Centre-Est, et avec un magnifique centre communautaire en partenariat avec le Centre culturel Frontenac. Next, please. Nous avons aussi, à l'autre bout du territoire, deux écoles à Trenton qui sont situées sur la base militaire de Trenton. Donc, nous avons l'école élémentaire publique Cité Jeunesse et l'école secondaire publique Marc Garneau. Vous voyez que Monsieur Garneau, de son vivant, était très, très impliqué avec la communauté scolaire et c'était une grande fierté pour nous d'avoir une école nommée pour lui. Next, please. Donc, au niveau des responsabilités des membres, mes deux homologues des deux autres conseils scolaires ont bien expliqué les rôles des conseillers scolaires. Donc, c'est une communication bidirectionnelle de la part de la communauté des élus envers le membre du conseil qui est porte-parole de sa communauté auprès du conseil et de l'administration. Mais les conseillers scolaires sont également les porte-parole du conseil en son entier. C'est bien important ici aussi de dire que un membre du conseil ne porte pas une voix individuelle, porte une voix collective, donc il représente et partage et communique les décisions du conseil en son entier. Et puis, la partie la plus valorisante de tout ça, bien entendu, c'est que les conseillères et les conseillers scolaires contribuent au bien-être et à la réussite des élèves, que ce soit par le biais d'introduire ou de réviser des politiques, de donner les grandes orientations stratégiques. Justement, nous sommes à mettre les touches finales sur notre nouveau plan stratégique 2026-2031. Next, please. Donc, vous allez voir ici une petite diapo que vous avez peut-être vue dans d'autres présentations du CPO. Ça vous explique un petit peu la différence entre le volet de gouvernance et le volet de gestion des conseils scolaires. Donc, les contribuables élisent 12 membres du conseil au CPO. Donc, nous avons 12 membres du conseil et 2 élèves conseillères cette année. L'année prochaine, on aura un élève conseillère et un élève conseiller. Et eux, le conseil en son ensemble est le patron de la direction de l'éducation, du secrétaire trésorier, qui, lui, fait le lien entre la gouvernance et la gestion. Next, please. Donc, au CPO, en général, on a une réunion ordinaire publique du conseil par mois. C'est habituellement le 4e mardi du mois en soirée. On s'en vient pas trop pire rodé pour ne pas finir les réunions trop tard. Elles sont en début de soirée. Puis c'est important de noter qu'en raison de la distance et selon les dispositions de la loi sur l'éducation, le membre du conseil de la région de Kingston, en raison de sa distance du siège social, peut participer à la majorité des réunions en mode virtuel. Et puis, nous avons aussi des réunions de comité desquelles je vais vous parler à la prochaine diapo. Puis, nous avons aussi l'occasion d'accueillir pendant notre réunion ordinaire du conseil certaines présentations de nos écoles. Et puis, il y a toujours une période de questions pour les contribuables qui souhaitent adresser des questions au conseil par l'entremise de la présidence. Next slide, please. Donc, comme tous les conseils scolaires en Ontario, on a à la gauche en mauve certains comités statutaires, donc qui sont requis par la loi. Il y a donc que ce soit en éducation spécialisée, la vérification, les comités de participation des parents, des comités d'appel à la suspension, séances de renvoi. On a quelques comités que l'on doit avoir par la loi et auxquels certains membres, généralement, on a à peu près 3 membres du conseil par comité et d'autres membres de la gestion, des membres du public selon les dispositions de la loi et des règlements. Nous avons aussi au CPO 4 comités permanents, soit le comité consultatif en équité droits de la personne, un autre comité consultatif qui est celui de l'éducation autochtone, un comité des biens immobiliers et un comité de gouvernance qui se penche plus particulièrement sur comment fonctionne le conseil. J'avoue, c'est mon petit comité chouchou. Mais ça nous donne la chance aussi d'innover au niveau du fonctionnement du conseil. Donc, si c'est quelque chose qui vous intéresse, ça nous ferait plaisir de vous y accueillir. Next slide, please. Donc, tout comme l'ont partagé mes homologues, il y a toutes sortes d'opportunités aussi des engagements en tant que membre du conseil au CPO. C'est vraiment de faire valoir les besoins, les aspirations du CPO auprès des instances politiques pertinentes. Donc, il y a des opportunités de rencontrer d'autres politiciens, de faire valoir les besoins du CPO, de vraiment élargir l'espace francophone, qui est un des mandats de conseil scolaire de langue française. Puis, il y a toutes sortes de belles opportunités de représenter le conseil dans les écoles, que ça soit des remises des diplômes, des anniversaires des écoles, les inaugurations, les pelletés de terre et toutes sortes d'activités communautaires, puisque le CPO est très bien ancré dans sa communauté. Puis, il y a aussi la chance à participer à quelques CA, dont prochainement, on vient de lancer la fondation du CPO pour venir en appui à nos élèves défavorisés, pour assurer une éducation équitable pour tous. Et puis, il y a les consortiums de transport et quelques autres CA sur lesquels vous avez la chance de représenter le CPO et faire rapport à vos collègues autour de la table du conseil. Last slide, please. Donc, ça me ferait grand plaisir. Vous avez à l'écran mon adresse courriel si vous avez des questions. Je vais rester aussi pour la période de questions, mais c'est toujours un plaisir pour moi. Ça fait près de 25 ans que je suis au CPO. Je l'ai tatoué sur le cœur et donc j'espère qu'on aura des membres de la communauté engagés qui voudront se joindre à nous. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Derek.
Merci. Thank you very much, Tara, for joining us today. So this brings us to the end of our speakers. We can now open it up to the question and answer period. Just a reminder, if you are participating virtually and would like to ask a question, you can either type it into the question and answer function and we will read it out and respond to it. Or if you'd like to ask your question, just raise your hand using the raise hand function in Zoom and we will allow you to speak. And if you're in the room, just raise your hand and Jennifer, who has a wireless mic, will come to you and you'll be able to ask your question, and then everybody in the room and online will be able to hear you. Before we start, I'm going to ask my colleague Nicole to turn off the recording so we can feel free to ask our questions and these won't be shared publicly afterwards.